So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And it's funny, you know when Paddy's been using it because he always has that name thing on at the bottom. There we go. Now it's a bit better. How's everyone doing? Aston Villa 2 wins out of 2 this week, 6 points, and a lot of favourable results went our way in other games, but we won't be talking about those. We're going to talk about Aston Villa versus Southampton. Aston Villa come away with a 1-0 win in a game that was messy. It was a messy game. It was messy conditions. And Villa didn't get out of second gear at all in the game. They didn't need to. Southampton were lackluster, I think it's fair to say. And Villa got their goal and they clung on. And that was really it. As you can see, I was putting up my Christmas tree earlier on, and I still have glitter all over my forehead. So that is good crack. We'll talk about the game. Yeah, someone Ed has asked me how I was camping during the storm. So for full disclosure, I wasn't really actually camping. It was kind of so I'm getting married next year, and I was checking out my wedding venue, and my wedding venue has all on-site accommodation, and some of them are kind of yurts. If you know what a yurt is. If you don't, then go look it up. And so there was no power for a finish. And it was quite windy and wild, and there was trees down all over the place. But it was good crack, and we're safe as houses. And I'd do it all again tomorrow if I could. It was good crack. So I'm marked safe from Storm Dara for sure, and I'm back with you guys now. But it meant obviously that I couldn't be on the team sheet tantrum for Southampton, and then the post match would be delayed, and that's what we're doing now. But the game not only threw a spanner in the works for the night I was spending in my future wedding venue, but also I think for both teams playing at the weekend, both Villa and Southampton. I suppose we'll start off a bit about the setup Villa went with. The setup, I think, worked pretty well. Obviously, there was changes. The whole back four changed, or at least the positional changes were there as well. And they brought in John Duran to start, and he obviously justified that start with a goal, which was great to see. We're going to talk about Duran. We're going to talk about the Watkins thing. I know it's probably going to come in the comments in a moment about Watkins misses at the end. Not something that we have strayed away from talking about Watkins in the past. Obviously, people do know that I am a big Watkins fan. We will get to that moment, I suppose. But there's one player, I suppose, that I've been very harsh on previously, Diego Carlos. And I have to say that I thought that I know there wasn't a lot that went on in this game, but I thought he was really good at that right centre back position. He's been better, obviously, in the last couple of weeks. I was pretty harsh on him maybe about a month ago, but it's good to see our back four and the people behind them are coming up to speed, I suppose, as well with regards to what Emery wants. Obviously, we keep a clean sheet in this game. We didn't keep a clean sheet against Brentford, but I thought the defensive performances in both were very solid, better than solid, to be honest with you. I think Villa were very unlucky not to keep a clean sheet against Brentford, even though we did switch off, I suppose, really, kind of like we did at times in this game as well. So the big news, I suppose, was John Duran starting up top, and he justified his selection, winning the ball back from what's your man's name? Hardware Bellis, and a very simple finish. A very, very simple finish over Lumley. And you know what? It was actually, I was listening to 1874, and I was also listening to Claret and Blue podcast, and I think both of them alluded to the fact that Lumley probably made it easy for him to finish the ball. But I think in 9 times out of 10, when a goalkeeper comes out like that, the earlier you take your shot, probably the better you are. The better chance you have of scoring. And I think if you look at maybe some of the chances that Watkins has missed in the past month, maybe 6 weeks, maybe taking the shot on a small little bit earlier might help him as well. Duran did it in this instance, goes into the back of the net, Villa get a 1-0 lead, and then Southampton don't do much from an attacking point of view then afterwards. They obviously get into the final third and stuff like that, but you know, both their strikers, both Armstrong and Archer, didn't really trouble us at all, or much, should I say. Emi Martinez, very, very cold day for him, I think, at the weekend. But overall, I think, look, it was exactly a performance that the conditions probably throws up from time to time. You know, game cancelled obviously earlier on in the day. It's just not a nice atmosphere to be playing football in. Yes, they get paid a ton of money. I'm expecting that comment to pop in a moment if it hasn't already. But I will say that they're you know, that after coming off a game against Brentford and then into a game like this 3 days later, and the body probably still a bit stiff and sore. Last thing you want is a freezing cold day like that. But Villa go and they professionally went and dealt with this game and got out of it with a 1-0 win. So I suppose the big thing, and I'll come to your comments in a moment, the big question I suppose here is, you know, look, obviously Villa made 4 substitutions all in the one goal. Maatsen coming off, Bailey coming off, who seems like he was injured, Tielemans coming off, and Duran coming off as well, but Watkins, Digne, Philogene and Ross Barkley coming on. And Watkins gets a couple of chances late on in the game. One, he should absolutely have squared across to John McGinn to make it 2-0, and then another one where he just doesn't, like, he doesn't take the shot at the right time, slows down the play, and Lumley gets out and makes a save. A lot of Twitter has been about, and a lot of the comments in the other podcasts have been about Watkins. You know, he's finishing being off, and nobody is going to deny otherwise. We're not going to say otherwise. But I think a game like that we saw today, not today, yesterday, should I say, I think it's, with Bailey being out now, it's probably proving my point of playing, and now is the time. Now is the time you have to play the two of them up top together. Watkins and Duran. It'd be interesting to see if he does do that, because, you know, Philogene comes on, and I would agree with Jacob Tanswell when he says he's playing very, very, very safe at the moment. Philogene is. I would agree with that. You know, we haven't seen any any massive electric runs from him or anything like that. So I'm probably of the opinion that, unfortunately, you probably go and you move John McGinn again, and you play Duran and Watkins up top together, with Watkins having more of a more leeway to move around the place. Duran runs in straight lines when he's playing up top, and I know I was listening to Jacob Tanswell, and I agree with 75 to 80% of what he said about Duran and Watkins and the differences there. I don't see any negative to playing the two of them together and at least giving it a run over a couple of games, with Ollie Watkins giving more of an opportunity to do what he does best, get around the field, be that one that wins headers, because he's as good, if not better, than John Duran at winning those. And then Duran can be just that maverick that just pops up and does his job. But one of the things that Jacob Tanswell said that I agree with 100%, and I think anybody who watches Duran or goes back and watches the games afterwards, is there's a lot of times he's doing things that's out of structure for what Unai Emery wants, and that's why he isn't starting games. And I'm not averse to that. I'm certainly not averse to that maverick spirit, especially when you're scoring goals. Like, as I said before, that goal he scores against whatever about the goal against Everton, the goal against Bayern Munich, he's no idea like where that's going to land or anything like that, but he's the balls to try it and take that shot. And I love it. I'm here for it. And I've got his name on my third shirt, which is here somewhere, John Duran. So absolutely, I think the time is right now to start playing the two of them together and utilize both their strengths, because if Leon Bailey is out, and we know we're getting less than nothing from wing play at the moment, it's really poor. Our wing play is really poor at the moment, and it's the single reason why we're stifled an awful lot in attack is our wing play. And look, we can talk about Watkins missing chances and stuff like that. That's obvious, you know, it speaks for itself. But our wing play is shocking at the moment. It's really bad. So I'm of the opinion that we go with our box midfield like we did when Unai came in firstly. We play Konza right back if we need to. Or Matty Cash, sorry, or Konza, whoever he wants to play at right back. I'm none too fussed there. But I think now that we give Watkins and we give Duran a couple of games up top. Maybe the last two games were the ones to do it, but we had players that were there. You know, we had Bailey available, we had Morgan Rogers available, and obviously switching Rogers out to the left and McGinn into the centre gives McGinn that more impetus to kind of get into the game. And I think everybody would agree that he's probably been better in the last two games than he has been for the last 6 or 8 weeks as well. So it's interesting. I don't know whether Unai would do it, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it with Ollie given more of that roaming role, back to his basics, but back to, you know, he has that instinct of being a winger previously. Duran doesn't. Duran's footballing education has been less than nothing, you know, when you think about it. Starting games at 14, 15 years of age in Colombia, then moving to MLS, and moving to Aston Villa. He's only really getting a footballing education now. Everything he's done before has been built on instinct, and the fact that he's able to play football obviously helps. But instinct and that footballing education, let him work on instinct as a striker. Let him go score another 7 goals before the end of the season, and Watkins will chip in with as many goals as he he will score as well. You know, and I think it's probably beneficial if we start to do that now, because it kind of helps us in two ways. I expect it to happen, by the way, but I think it helps us in two ways. Our wing play is just so bad at the moment. It's really poor. And like, if we don't have overlapping fullbacks, we're getting not a lot out of from the wings other than slow play at the moment, and that's the most worrying part, I think, from Aston Villa's performances for me at the minute. So play the two of them up top, see what comes of it, and let both of them go in and get double digits. Or let both of them get 15 goals for Villa this year, as opposed to having one striker that we need to rely on. Because as we see here, we relied on Ollie Watkins last year. He delivered the goods. He got 19 goals. When he came on for England in the summer, scores a really good finish near post. Everybody was talking about it. He hasn't had that kind of killer instinct this season. So far, he still has a decent goals record, 7 goals in 15 games. But play him up top with Duran, let the two of them go, have at it. As I said before, attack with 4, defend with 6, and see what way you go. You know, I look, it's overly simplistic, I know, but when Leon Bailey, if Leon Bailey's out for 3 weeks now, I'm like, Duran is a better player than Philogene. And we should be able to shoehorn the two of them into the team for 3 weeks and see what way it goes. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But yeah, Aston Villa 1, Southampton 0. And Aston Villa, I thought, were I was a lot more positive, I think, about the game, about the way the game went, about the shape work that the Villa were playing with and stuff like that, than maybe a lot of other people. But wins are wins, and nobody remembers how badly or how well you played. Well, they remember how well you played, but no one remembers how badly you played in a 1-0 win against Southampton in a dirty day at the start of December. So the 3 points is what people remember at the end of the season. Going to come to some of your comments here. Guys, let me just see here. Simon Kelly says, was at the game, the conditions were so bad. Have a lot of forgiveness for the mess of the game. A win is all that matters. Great for Durant to get his goal. That is the synopsis of the game. I think that's the best synopsis of the game that you will find as well, which is great. 4 points off third. A win this weekend would be huge. Absolutely. I think that's right, Melty. Aaron Cunningham says, clung on. I don't agree. I don't agree, considering that, you know, Southampton didn't have a lot of shots in the game, a lot of shots on target, should I say. Yeah, they had more passes than us, they had more possession and stuff like that, but I never at any stage really felt that Southampton were up to much. And I actually felt pretty comfortable watching this game back. Now, I did know the score when I watched the game, or sorry, I knew the score when I watched the game back, because I couldn't watch it live because I had no power in the middle of the woods. But I had already read what people's opinions of it were. The Villa were poor, that so on and so forth. And when I watched it, I didn't get that feeling myself. But, you know, as I say, it's we could have won 4-0 and we didn't. We could have, you know, as I say, we had those chances to do that, but I just never really had the feeling that Southampton were going to do much, even watching it back, you know, that it was squeaky bum at any stage. But look, you know, everybody has everybody watches it in different ways, which is absolutely fine too. There's no right or wrong way to dissect a game like that. Where else are we? Kevin Genie says Watkins probably couldn't score that Duran goal, bully the defenders, but Duran can't really drag players around like Watkins. It's a great combo, to be honest. That's exactly what I was getting at there as well. Like Duran cannot play the channels. Like he can, and that's another, like our wide play is so bad. We need a striker that needs to be able to go and play the channels, and playing two up top with one person who can do that, I think it will be beneficial. But Duran, going back to his balling education, he just has he's never been shown how to play the channels. You can see it. He's as raw as an uncooked steak with regards to that one, you know. Whereas Watkins has a bit more, obviously, coming up through the leagues and having to earn his apprenticeship, essentially. You know, Duran's a young man. He's still in his apprenticeship in football. So it's not a slight on him or anything like that. It's just, if you have his maverick nature up top and you have somebody who can drag defenders around, well, then it gives him more space to you know, do his chaotic stuff that he does. I think that's for sure. Philly D says we should try to buy Tyler Dibbling. Absolutely. I think he's a fine player. Fine dribbler of the ball. You know, wingers. We're talking about needing wingers. Yeah, absolutely. I think I would sign him. Unfortunately, I think Tyler Dibbling will be wearing a blue jersey at some stage in the near future, and not that of Birmingham City, but I think he'll be wearing one of two blue jerseys, I think, in the not too distant future. Where else are we? Andy Badger says, I bet McGinn gave Watkins some stick after that, though. How many times should he have squared it for McGinn? Yeah, definitely there was one attempt. There was two chances he had to square it. One of them, I think there's very few players in football would be able to get the ball to McGinn. Watching it on TV, you can see McGinn is there. There isn't anybody with as nasty as roar of him. But the way the players were coming back, I think that gets cut out, and it probably looks as bad as what Watkins did with it. But there was definitely one. Of course, yeah, you slide it across the box. It's a simple 2-0. Yeah, even Watkins' most ardent fan would say that should have been passed to McGinn. And it's team over player in that instance for 100% sure. Where else are we? Barry Diablo says we look disjointed when they play together. Yeah, but I know, but there's only one way to get jointed, and that's for them to play together. Like, I think it's probably unfair to say that it's a done deal. We don't look at it in the future. I'd say they've probably only played together this season anyway, and I'm going to discount last season for Duran, but this season, I don't know what the statistic is of how many minutes they've played together, but it can't be much more than 200 minutes that they've played together. So I think the sample size is too small, and I think that if you're doing it all week long, you know, as opposed to throwing him on and playing two up top, which is a different situation, you don't shape plan for that. You don't do any of your movement work. You don't even do corners for stuff like that, corner routines for stuff like that. When you've got the two of them on the field, you do, but you don't do them in the main. Like, you don't spend 70% of your time in training every week doing that. So I just wonder. I think it's time to take a look at it, I would say. If we've got no wingers, it's definitely time to take a look at it, because I'm not sitting through Leipzig with Matty Cash and Ian Maatson as our two wingers. Like, you know, I can't do that. I think Aston Villa Football Club should be able to manipulate our formation slightly. And I'm not even saying against Leipzig, actually. I'm thinking maybe, you know, in future games. But like, we should be able to manipulate our formation slightly, or the way that we play slightly, to be able to incorporate two strikers who are, you know, will get us multiple tens of millions in the transfer market at any given time. Specifically when we've got no wingers and our wing play is as bad as it is at the moment. It's because I can't state how poor it is to watch at the minute. And that for me is the more worrying thing. But all things that people have said there, absolutely, you know, the disjointedness, we haven't looked like we've balanced, but, you know, I think the sample size in it is very small, and I think it can be worked on for sure. And Philly agrees, Watkins and Duran doesn't work. It never has worked. It's never been tried for long enough for me. So I genuinely don't think that that's even arguable. That if for me to say that it hasn't been tried long enough for a considerable amount of time, it just hasn't. Like how many games have they started together? How many minutes have they played together? You know, what were those games that we were playing? Were we chasing the game? Were we, you know, all these different contexts are different. You know, so I think it's definitely worth trying. We've got no wingers for sure, 100%. Yeah, a lot of people saying it doesn't work together. I can't agree. I can't agree that we can say that for certain. Sorry, sure, should I say? I can't agree that we can say that for certain. Might be able to say it by the end of the year for sure, 100%. But to be as definitive on that to say that it doesn't work, I look. I'm an evidence-based guy. Unfortunately, it's probably to my detriment. So, I need to see more of it before I can make a determination on it for sure. Where else are we with regards to the comments? I lost those. No, King81 says Philogene and Bailey discuss, are they really Premiership quality? Bailey has had a good half season out of 4 years here. I think he had a good full season, and he had a decent end to the last 10 games to Emery's first season. He was coming off the bench an awful lot. Look, Bailey had a good season last year. If we have last season's Bailey again this year, you know, we're cock a hoop about it. I'm open to upgrading on both. I've no this. If you take nothing from this podcast, take my disdain for our wing play at the moment. Take my disdain for the wing play as the takeaway from this podcast at the moment, because it's just bad. You know, no matter who's playing there, whether it's Bailey, whether it's Philogene, it's not great. From an attacking sense, and I've said on that right hand side, the communication looks to be all over the place at times there too. So I'm absolutely up. I'm open to upgrading on both. Obviously not cutting bait and selling them or anything like that. I'd like to bring in somebody who could play maybe across that front, that three behind the striker, and there are players who can do that for sure. But if we can bring in somebody who can play either left or right wing to complement them, absolutely. I think it's time to. I think we need fresh impetus there, and I think for all we would have been clamoring for a right back in January. Now, I would go so far as to say as wing play is probably would be my number one target if I was making a signing. In this off season, because having somebody that can pin back wing backs, that can, that needs that extra bit of attention in midfield as well. At the moment, if teams put 1-on-1 against our wingers at the moment, they're getting joy, and they didn't get that joy last year. They didn't get that joy against Leon Bailey last year. They didn't get that joy to a lesser degree at the start of the season, at the end of last season for Morgan Rogers on the other side. Rogers obviously is a different kettle of fish when he drags inside and stuff like that and runs through the centre, and he's still really good at that. McGinn has started to do that more as well. But Bailey was very much a case of run direct, get players turning, get players on their heels, and then cut inside and get them turning again and ping it in the top corner. And that really worked well last year. And he hasn't been given an opportunity to do that this year. I'm not saying that we get somebody that's a direct runner like that either, but I think having some sort of trickery where you can get their midfield to shift across to one side specifically. At the moment, their midfield can stay very centrally, which then is negating Morgan Rogers when he comes through the middle. Is also negating Tielemans, because if their midfield is set in the centre quite a lot, then when Tielemans picks up the ball, their press can come higher an awful lot quicker, as opposed to having to come diagonal towards him or shift to set first and then move forward. You know, so there's a lot of intricacies, I think, with our wing play that is leading to us being easily defended in other areas of the field. But I hope that's a long-winded answer, or that's not a long-winded answer to a simple question. Dan asks, what's the coefficient FC status for 5th place getting Champions League? I think it's pretty decent. I think it's actually really decent. There's a guy on Twitter whose name escapes me. It's funny. In May, I would have been able to recite his name backwards and probably in 7 different languages. I was looking him up on Twitter so much. But no, I can't even remember his name. But he had them all bang on to the to the decimal point. All his coefficients. If you've got a spare half hour and you want to go down through the people I'm following on Twitter, you'll find him there. I think it's almost clearly marked that that he does stuff with regards to seedings and draws and coefficients and stuff like that. I think so. Yeah. Where else are we? Yeah, the Tross says in January, winger is a priority, preferably somewhere that can play both wings. Also, Matson at left wing could surely work. I've absolutely no problem with Matson playing left wing. Yeah. Another thing that Jacob said as well was with regards to Matson, he's defensive, tracking back and positioning. I think that is a bit raw at the moment, specifically for the pace of the Premier League. And I know people will talk about the Champions League last year, and he was absolutely flawless. And he's not bad at it. It's just Dean is better. But I see nothing wrong with trying him at left wing, for sure. I think playing him at left wing is a little bit of a more enticing proposition due to his pace than playing Matty Cash at right wing is. And certainly I would be scratching my head in a team sheet tantrum if we had both of them playing on the wings at some stage. As something started making noise here in my office. I don't know what the hell is going on. If everything shuts off and it goes dark and you see someone grab me from behind or something like that, just know that I love you all, okay? And that this is probably the end, because there was some big massive noise in my office there. Anyway, where else are we? King81 says, we'll buy no one as PSR is still a big problem. We have no money. We need to sell to buy, and there isn't much money around in January for what we need to get in. Don't be surprised to see the club do loan, like a continental style loans to buy, think Serie A. And that's coming from that's coming from nothing to do with the club. Jeez, don't get me wrong, I don't have inside knowledge or anything like that at the club, so just in case anybody was hanging on my words there for that one. I do know of somebody who is an agent at a lot lower level, but works with a big agency, and they have said that because of PSR, the loans, like 2-year loans with obligation to buys and stuff like that, which are risky. They're risky in the Serie A teams do, and mostly they do them between each other in Serie A. In Serie A, but getting players on loan with obligations to buy is probably something that we're going to see an awful lot more, or even with no obligations to buy, or like we had with Zaniolo last year. Like think Zaniolo last year. Loan a player, if he plays over 25 games, then you have to buy him, or you have to pay X amount to not buy him, whatever the case may be. I think that the club could still go down that route. It's wages and signing on fees, and I think they'd be silly not to. And there are players out there that you can get. There are players you can get that will come to do that, to showcase themselves in the Premier League, that are at clubs. See, I actually think what Villa's biggest issue is that because we're in the Champions League, we need to sign a person that isn't in the Champions League to come in and to give us the output that we want. That's a bit of that's a problem as well, because if we buy someone in January, we're going to want them for whatever games we play in the Champions League, and I think that's an even bigger issue. But look, we'll see what the brain trusts we are able to do in the coming month. But you are right, PSR is still an issue because the greatest money still is coming off the books. But I've faith that the brain trust will be able to work things out and maybe get a player through the door. But yeah, PSR hasn't gone anywhere this season. And that's for absolute sure. And I don't know enough about it other than that to dig into it. We might get Matt Burton on again to talk about it. He did a brilliant job on it last time. That might be something we might do in the coming weeks as well. Philly D says, go back in time. Absolutely, go back in time and sign Tony Daly. Absolutely. Give me Tony Daly. If we had one in either side, wouldn't we be a different proposition? That's for sure. Where are we? Barry Diablo asks, any decent wingers in the 21s we can promote? Well, Ben Braggio is there, but once again, the 21s are in their UEFA under-19s competition too. Still in with a opportunity of progressing in that, as far as I'm aware. But I wouldn't see any of those being brought up. I wouldn't. Not yet, anyway. You could be wrong. Could be wrong. They get named in squads all the time. Bradjo's been named. Excuse me, named in a first team squad already. But I wouldn't be hanging my hat on him to come in just now. Fantastic at his level. Maybe he needs a loan out first. I don't know. What do I know? He could come in. He could be the second coming of Jack Grealish in a first team. He could be Aaron Lamal, or was it Lamine Yamal as well? But we won't know until we try it, and I just don't see it happening this year as well. A couple of people saying about Brodja, they're all right. Yeah, for sure. Soy asks about Willie Nanto. Not for me. I've never been convinced by Willie Nanto. Not for me. But I actually don't. I don't see him. I only see him leaving on a permanent transfer anyway. Which I've just alluded to there may not be the route that we go down. Specifically, not a £30 million signing. Or £20 million signing or anything like that. May not be the route that we go down. I don't know. Yes, lads, you're talking about football rankings. That's the guy I was following. Yeah, football rankings. That's for the coefficient, for sure. Lots of comments in here, guys. Thanks a million. Just keeping the podcast going. I like it. Dan Sue says Michael Chiodi would be a great signing. We did a piece on him. I did a piece on him. All right, yeah, right back, right wing back from Fiorentina. Very interesting guy. Go back and watch it. But more of the right back situation, more of the attacking right back side of things, attacking wing back. And Nima, who from the Italian Football Podcast came on and spoke about him as well, and he was of the opinion that Chiodi was a superb talent, and whoever gets him will be very happy with him. Where else are we? Melty Shirts thinks Carlos Buendia gone in the summer, I reckon. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Or sorry, not that I think so. I think that if the right money came in, the club would be malleable towards selling them. Maybe, I don't know. Like we know they nearly sold Carlos to Fulham on deadline day. We know that nearly happened, and then it didn't. And as I have to say, the last couple of games that Carlos has played for us, he's been pretty good. If he keeps up this form and he keeps up this look, my biggest thing with Carlos is lack of concentration. I've always said it about him, but the weekend he was rock solid. Same against like Bayern Munich and that. And one of the guys who watches the podcast the whole time actually sent me, and I never got back to him, sent me an amazing statistic about Diego Carlos that I don't want to misquote it. So let me. 15 of the last 21 clean sheets that Aston Villa have kept have included Diego Carlos in the starting lineup, apparently. So clean sheets, we don't keep too many of those, but we did keep one at the weekend, and Diego Carlos did start. So fair play to him. Kevin Genius says, I remember the league. Was he Thiago Silva or Thiago Santos or something like that? Yeah. I'm surprised that he didn't go to Juventus in the summer, didn't follow, or it didn't go to Milan, AC Milan in the summer. Didn't follow Fonseca to Milan, or maybe he did. I know they were linked with him at some stage, but I don't know whether he actually moved or not. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up, because this could very easily turn into a transfer podcast, and I really do want to do one of those very, very soon. We were linked with a guy by the name of Malik Tillman from PSV. It was a spurious link, but it was from Florian Plettigol. So I've actually got one of those pre-recorded. I just haven't released it because I didn't feel I felt it was too far away. Might release it next week. We'll see. There's a lot of football coming on, and we have a lot of podcasts. So he's actually quite an interesting player. Played up at Rangers for a bit, but he's really young. American winger who cut his teeth at Bayern Munich. Go have a look at him. I find him quite interesting. I might do that later. But yeah, the transfer stuff will be coming thick and fast now over the course. I'm off for an incredible amount of time over Christmas. Considering the job I do, I shouldn't be off at all over Christmas. But I have the bonds of about 11 or 12 days, I think, off. So I will be stuck doing doing scouting stuff because I haven't had enough time to do any of it, and as you guys know, I just love doing it. So that's going to be my Christmas present to myself, finding time to do that over the Christmas period. That's all to come. We also might have something really interesting coming up in the next few days as well, with a familiar face that some of you guys will know. Hopefully that gets over the line, and if it does, keep an eye out on social media. We will announce that if that does happen. But in the meantime, everybody, thanks a million for watching. This has been a rambly enough post-match podcast. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about a lot of things. I've just been honest in my opinions about stuff, and it's we've got so much football to go through. We've got Paddy will be back again tomorrow, and we will talk about Leipzig, and then we'll have team sheet tantrums and post matches then from that as well, and then it's thick and fast from here on out then up until Christmas time. So hopefully you stick with us, and if you know of anyone you think might like this podcast, do give them a shout and tell them to get on it. But as always, really appreciate all your time. 9:30 on a Sunday evening. Probably the last thing you want to do is talk about football. People are winding down before they go to bed, so appreciate all of your time. And thanks a million. We'll see you very, very, very soon. In the meantime, all that's left to say is stay safe, stay healthy, and wait a minute. Everything is gone. Oh, there it is. It's back again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.